Hello there in conference room 1. Please turn on your camera and your microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I was gonna ask that question. People who have gone over,
Yeah, I mean, that was before my time.
they're paying with their own money? Is that what that means?
Well, no, that means that the person before me made some adjustments to accommodate.
Okay.
But with the COVID funding, you'll see that, what happened was we had a lot of people who were unable to spend the COVID funding.
Mhm.
So we're actually going to be reallocating on top of what I've already reallocated to some people. And you'll see up where it says CD, that means that's COVID funding. So,
Oh,
just trying to find it, Center for Creative Education, you guys are, the mayor, everybody approved $25,000, but they were able to spend their money and some people weren't. So we had to find people that could spend the money and ask them if they had additional receipts or they could continue to spend. So they were increased to $39,610.50, and they were able to spend that.
Okay.
You'll see further down, legal services of Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
They were given 70,000, they spent 47. They're rescinding the rest of it. They're not going to spend the 20,000 for COVID break. And they are rescinding their 2022. I just didn't get that far yet. They got some huge grant. I don't know from where, but they said that they were unable to use that grant and use our funding. And they asked that, in the future, we keep in mind that they will probably come back to us.
Mhm.
So, I said, okay.
And those rescinded funds get added into so what we're saying the 23 pot now?
No, so what happens is, if it's a small amount, it can be reallocated to another project or activity that's already been approved by HUD.
Okay.
So, and the service money can go to programs can go to programs, or it can go to infrastructure. But infrastructure can never go the other way.
Sure.
There are some subrecipients who haven't spent any money yet. You can see who they are when there's a space across the thing. Hey, that's how are you? We were just going over, Steve had asked me to put together a list for you guys of over the last 5 years, and I didn't quite get to 2022 yet, of who was funded, what they were funded, and if they were able to spend. Some people have rescinded money, some people we've taken it from because we just aren't spending.
Yeah.
We weren't here at the last meeting, but we did not make our timeliness again. We did last year, but we didn't for this year.
So what does that mean?
Well, that means one of two things, or three things, I seriously doubt it's just a slap on the wrist, because prior to COVID, for 4 years, not making timeliness. And then I got us into timeliness. And then we had all this money that we reallocated that didn't get spent. So we were almost $300,000 over for this year. And that was before we got our 2022 allocation, which put us another 700,000 over. So we need to spend about 900,000 between now and May,
Wow.
because then we're going to be going through the 2023. We can never have more than 1.5 times our allocation sitting in the U.S. Treasury.
Okay. So 900,000 between now and May.
Roughly, yes. And
just to point out, we have a quorum, we might as well call the meeting to order. So it's going to be part of the meeting. All right, so the time is 6:32. we will call to order the October meeting of the Community Development Committee. That's it. We will get moving. Committee members, myself, Steve Shabbat, Rita Worthington, Mike Oliveri, and Director Amanda Bruck are here. So we will commence, okay? I guess you can continue on. Mandy?
So, like I said, ain't as far as 2022, but I give you at least 4 years. So you get an idea of who spent. There are some people who as I said, who have given back their money because they can't spend it. So legal services is one of them.
They haven't spent?
No, and they're not going to because they have a huge grant. I think they got it from New York State. So they said there's no way that they could put the time in for the CPG grant. So they'll be using New York State grant. They did ask that if at some point they come back, that we would consider them again.
Okay.
If you look through and you have any questions, just feel free to ask. I didn't have a chance to, like a nice pretty color, spend like $80.
So if there's a blank, Amanda,
If there's a blank, they haven't spent any of their money yet.
any of it? Well, $51,800 haven't been spent yet.
Yeah, that.
Of course, it belongs to.
If it says canceled, they have notified me already, they could not spend it. Either they were not able to come in at the price that they said they were, or the project is just beyond their control at this point and not be able to move forward. Art Society of Kingston was one of them. The other thing is what the subrecipients don't understand is when they don't make time in this, we're certainly not going to make it. So as much as we try to hound them and say, hey, look, you only have a year to spend it, and some people hang on to it. And what they don't understand is it's not a piggy bank. You know, you can't just hold on to it for a rainy day. Because that puts us behind the times.
Mandy,
Yeah,
$355,000 for the city of Kingston.
for the sewers, yeah.
The sewers, which we have been complaining about and complaining about.
Yeah, that was the second allocation, so that came from,
That's nothing. 500,000 and only spent 10.
I can't, you know, how many times I ask them about these sewers and they tell me, we gotta bond for it, we gotta get more money. And I'm looking at over $800,000. And only,
you know, we have to spend that, and I've actually said if we have any bills, and I understand there's other grants or bonding or whatever, but if we don't spend our money,
we lose it,
we
right?
lose it, yes. And what they'll do is eventually they'll say, hey, you know, every year we're giving you $700,000, but you can't spend free, so guess what? And I'm sure it will happen, you know, I don't want to be the poster child.
Yeah, but they gotta do it on time so we don't lose the money.
We only have until May to spend roughly $900,000, especially because by the time June shows up, I've already got the next annual action plan written.
Do you want to send an email?
Oh, yeah.
Can you CC them? Because like you said, it's 855,000, we spent 10.
And not for nothing, I asked for updates on what's going on with the sewer work, and I get many, many excuses or reasons, let's not go into reasons on why it's not being done. And in one instance, it was because funds were a problem, but this doesn't look like funds are a problem.
These are funds.
They're,
A lot of funds.
Yeah.
they're ready to be used.
Okay.
Well, thank you for this, this is very.
Yeah, it's very, very
You know what?
helpful.
I promise you between now and the end of the week, I'll get up to 2022 done, just so you can see.
So these are monies that we have to spend in addition to the 2022 allocations that need to be made, right? So how are we going
Well,
to,
so what I didn't do, but I will. I already know roughly how much money is unspent. But like I said, I didn't have a chance to, be as in-depth as Steve had asked. I was trying to at least make sure you guys had some information.
No, Mandy, if I can ask a question while you're doing that. You said earlier, and I don't think Rita was here yet, that funds that aren't spent by them, we're allowed to allocate to other,
To reallocate.
to reallocate to other funds. Now, hopefully, we're not creating more work for us next year, but should we add, like, do we have a say on who gets those funds? You know, for example, like the Boys and Girls Club, I remember they wanted to do a big thing with, I think it was screen printing. And we weren't able to allocate them their full allowance. They were able to do certain projects of what they had. But I know you said we're allowed to give it to other, other participants in this, but who dictates who gets those funds?
That's a very good question. And I'm not sure.
Okay.
What I do know is, so in any given year, this much I do know, in any given year, if there is below a certain threshold, I can reallocate to somebody who's already been approved. When it's above a certain threshold, then we need what's called substantial amendment. That's where the money came from the first time for the sewers. Because remember, there's like $1 million that we had to reallocate. So I do know for certain that for 2020, because of the amount of money that has not been spent and needs to be reallocated, we have to have another substantial amendment.
Now, correct me, this is, Rita probably knows this, you may not know this, that excess money doesn't have to go to one of these other applicants, right? I mean, we have gotten requests to use these funds for other things.
Right, so what happens is then you're really going through the CDBG application process all over again for substantial amendment. In theory, if you have projects for activities that were already approved by the HUD, you could say, okay, we have, I'm just trying to find the amount, it's like, I think it's like $230,000 or $250,000 that needs to be reallocated from 2020. So in theory, if you had an activity that was approved even up through 2022, you could say, okay, we're going to give this much to, fucking with my mask, it's not my mouth, hair or something. Let's just say you had a sidewalk project and you knew it was going to be done, but you could use extra funds for that, and it's already an approved project that we have. You could say, okay, we're going to take 100,000 right over to there, and basically done deal. The thing is, it has to go through the 30-day, has to have a public hearing and a 30-day public comment period because of the amount of money that's involved.
Sure.
Just like every year when we start the new CDBG process, we have a public hearing for anybody to come and speak to us, or a 30-day public comment period that follows, that they can write to us and say, hey, look, this is what I think you should be spending the money on. And then, you take that into consideration. If you decide not to, all those comments are to be included with the annual action plan or substantial amendment to HUD. So they can see if anybody, made a request that wasn't looked at, or it doesn't follow the 5-year content.
so they wouldn't necessarily have to go through the application process again, no? They could just, as long as they have a project that was already pre-approved by HUD, they can come back
they don't even have to come back. You could look at it and say, okay, you know what? And what I did say before, and I'm sure that you remember this. Project money cannot go to a program, but program money can go to a project.
Right.
Because you can never go over the 15%.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I'm still kind of, like, even if it's under the threshold, where you don't have to do all that, who still,
I get to do that.
so you're the one who decides where the money goes to?
Well, I mean, it's not like,
With
I mean,
recommendations.
I don't sit there and go, well, I go back and I look at the spreadsheet that everybody did in the first place that said, well, this is, like, say you thought somebody should get 30 and ended up with 20.
Right,
If I can work it out so that they get 10 to bump them up.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay, because I mean, what I was thinking is, you know, let's say next year when we do this, if we said, okay, in the event of extra, you know, allocated funds or whatever it may be, you know, as a committee, let's say, you know, we pick our top 3 people who would get that additional funding, because I forgot which program, there was one that we really liked, but it just,
yeah.
but we couldn't fund it, and like, but I think everyone agreed on that particular, yeah, we should try and do whatever we could. Is there a way that we can have input and say, okay, if you do have funds that haven't been used, we would like to see it allocated to this one? Like, so should we make that, you know, our top 3, you know, fund list, or it would just be a waste?
You know, I honestly, I'd love to be able to answer that question, but I don't know.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, all this information goes to the mayor. And if you're the one that makes, the final decision, after looking at your recommendations.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, so the substantial amendment is also a bit of a process because, you have to have, you know, the public hearing, then everybody makes public comment period, then you write the substantial amendment, which is almost as much as writing a comp plan for it. So, I mean, it's, you know, it takes time, it takes a lot of time.
Okay.
But if you know, have some ideas, you know, I would say sooner than later. Maybe write down the recommendations and then forward them. Because I would like to get the substantial amendment, I'm going to be out, I'm going on vacation next week.
For you.
And I will be on vacation the first week of December. But other than that, my life is devoted to between KLBC and this. But I would like to get the substantial amendment at least started. You know, get a notice in the paper that there's going to be a 30-day public hearing first, followed by a 30-day public comment period. And then, you know, you guys make your recommendation. Because it will take upwards of 60 days, if not more, for HUD to review it and get back to us. So it's a several-month period.
Okay, so let me just so I'm clear. So we will put it out there that we have this much money that we can allocate or reallocate, right? We have the public hearing and the public comments, and then we will make a decision as to where we think the money should go. Give that to you, and you will do the amendment.
So, yeah, so what will happen is kind of the same idea as the CDBG, regular CDBG process, where you either look at applications that you already saw in the past, that you think, you know, maybe should have had more funding, and you can either go that route, or you could probably open it up to people who did not get funded at all, but who submitted an application at that point.
Okay.
I can double check with our HUD rep, only because I don't think that's ever been done before. I think it's just always been reallocated to a project.
That was already funded.
Right,
Yeah.
and we haven't had a lot of substantial amendments,
Right.
because there's never been that much money, except for we had a close to $1 million during the beginning of COVID that we had to
Right.
figure out to do with.
Right. Right. Okay.
All right, so you want to check that out?
Sure.
Thank you.
Now, going forward.
I think wording correctly, huh?
In fact, that was a nice start anyway, moving forward.
Going forward, the application process and the CDBG Community Development Committee will be, doing the whole process again of reallocating, listening to people reviewing the applications. However, how are we going to do that if we don't have our advisory board? Are we going to put out for another advisory board?
Again,
Yeah, how are we?
I wish I had an answer for you. So the mayor appoints people from the public. I mean, if you have somebody who you think would be good on the board, I would say have them, I think you have to fill out applications.
Yes,
Have them fill out the application, because we're down to 2 people,
I know.
and one of
And
them,
I just don't know how we,
one was definitely gonna bail, but Amy convinced them to stay.
yeah, I mean, I guess my question is, how do we make recommendations and or get them approved if we don't have that, we're supposed to have that board?
So for the charter, there's supposed to be 8 residents and 5 of you
Yeah.
from your standing committee.
Mhm.
I venture to say if you don't have the 8, you still have your 5, and it would have to come from your 5.
Isn't that what we did last year? Or earlier this year when we allocated the funds? Wasn't it just really us?
You had Ursula,
we had-
Ursula left. Cassandra's still around, and Corinne. She was here last week, or last month.
Okay.
I mean, our citizen action plan also calls for following, charter and rules. And our citizen action plan states that there's, supposed to be 8 residents and 5 members from the council.
Okay,
And I would say you do the best that you can. I mean, right now you have a quorum of your committee. And if only 3 of you show, then you're the 3 that makes the recommendation.
okay.
I'm gonna talk about, I have a new neighbor, she said she would like to get involved. So let me see if she wants to get this involved. But this is kind of a, very intense for a little while, and then the rest of the year is pretty light, so might be something up her alley. So let me ask her, maybe we can get somebody on board. Be nice to have it filled when we start this
Yeah.
stuff.
I just had some of my papers.
Definitely was at least 2 of you, because the process wasn't the same as when they first came on board.
Mhm.
I just felt that,
They, it just felt like they weren't really needed.
I mean, it's a lot of time to put in for that.
Yeah. All right, well. I think that we should get this process back to where it was. Nothing saying that we can't do that.
Yeah, we're working on a couple things. I could have spoke to Andrea today about a couple things. So she's actually going to get a hold of the HUD rep, and we're going to try and get this back on track.
Good.
That's what I said. So it's one way, whether we're doing it wrong, let's just get it right.
Right, right.
So we can move forward.
Absolutely.
Support to the community.
Absolutely.
Well, and it was good. In the end, I really like that, having that cross section of the community, giving input on this.
Right.
I mean, that's what it's all about.
I was incorrect when we had the last meeting. I said that we have to start the new 5-year comp plan for 2023. It ends in 2023, so it's really for 2024. So during the beginning of next year, before I come to council and ask for money, because we can't get away from getting a 5-year comp plan. It's required, it's a HUD requirement, and it's really a city thing. And so when I tried to come before you guys last time, it was removed from my budget request. And then when John was questioned, he said, because I didn't have the proper information for pricing. So what I will do is to make everybody feel better about it, I will go out and get, the quotes that we need so that everybody knows about how much it's gonna cost, because we also have to have a language access plan, which we were supposed to have had at least 8 years ago. So, what I'm gonna try to do is put it out together, the RFP, so that it'll come in less expensive if you're asking for, maybe one company to do 2 things as opposed to 2 different companies coming in.
And have you started getting applications?
No, not yet. They have until, and they wait till let's make.
Somebody told me he already submitted one, but.
But it's us, because trust me,
Well, I don't know who he's.
Amy would have been all over that.
Yeah, okay. All right.
But they have until the 9th, and our game plan is, that's what I wanted to ask you guys. Let me, get pull my calendar, I'm sorry. So our goal is to have the applications in by noon on the 9th.
November.
Yes. Our meeting will not be on the 26th because City Hall is closed. How do you guys feel about the 19th, the week before? Because then we'll be able to do the applications
What day is that?
December.
Oh,
December
December
19th, that's a Monday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just,
Or we can do it on the 20th, but, you know what, I was thinking this is Monday. Never mind, scratch that. If you guys are all good with the 27th, which is the day after Christmas, because they're closed on the 26th, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Oh, that's our regularly scheduled.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyhow, we get them on the 9th. Her goal is to have them to you by like the 16th, so you have some time to look at them before we have the meeting on the 27th. I don't have the calendar that she sent out. But I know like probably the following. What we might do is, I'll have to see timing. Because like I said, the substantial amendment's gonna take a bit of effort too. Maybe in the December meeting, she'll have it, we'll have the applications out to you, so you can at least look at them. We'll ask the applicants to come to the December meeting to speak to you if you have questions or to, we'll have to see how many people there are. It can get, you haven't seen this. I mean, if you thought last year was bad, and I don't know if you did. We've had it, seriously, where people come with 20 people and you give them like 5 minutes, but they just keep going. So we try to cut that off. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we try to say, no more than 2 people, still get 5 minutes, because you guys need to have time to talk too.
Elevator speeches.
Yeah, and then if they're here, you have questions, that's fine. But, otherwise we'll be here forever. We have been here forever.
Mhm.
and you used to bring snacks.
Well, she brought candy last month.
That's right, you did.
I think that's all I really needed to say. Does anybody have any questions?
So you're just gonna,
I will,
according to our original plan here.
rush this up and then get it out to you.
Great, this is great, thank you.
What I'll do is what I wanted to do, because Steve had asked about giving you guys an update of, like if somebody hasn't spent or they haven't spent all, like when was the last time they put in a request? And some people haven't put in a request for a year. But that's what Steve was asking, so I will make sure that I get all that information to you guys, and I'll have it by the end.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right?
thank you.
Thank you for all this.
Yeah, this is good.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
Future funds.
Oh, I'm good. Take a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Anybody against that?
No, sir.
Thanks for
We're
bringing
back over
it
here
back.
to the other one now. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much. Great information.
No, I don't have any more.
You just hit the two,
I'm gonna try and get that,
word and the microphone, or just hit it.
I'm gonna try and get that